Grandma was a prophet, able to see the future. A few days before she passed away, she called me to her bedside and said, "After I die, you will inherit the ability to predict the future, but you must never tell anyone, especially your mother. Otherwise, everyone in the village will die." In my past life, I didn't understand what she meant. I thought it was just because she and my mother had always had a strained mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship, but after my mother repeatedly promised to keep it a secret, I secretly told her the truth about my ability. It turned out she couldn't keep the secret alone. So she let the entire village share it. For this, she kept me trapped in the village forever. I never even got the chance to go to school. I was locked in the house where Grandma used to live. From time to time, villagers would come to my door with meat and candy, asking me to predict good or bad luck in the futures. I finally understood why Grandma had told me not to tell anyone, especially my mother. She would turn me into a tool for profit, accumulating money for my brother's future marriage and children. And I, along with the entire village, would die because of the woman my brother married. I silently vowed, this life, I must not let anyone know my secret. As soon as Grandma passed away, my mother asked eagerly, "Just like she did in my past life, did Grandma say anything to you before she died? Did she tell you who the next prophet will be?" I shook my head. "Grandma didn't say anything. Maybe the next prophet will be a woman who comes to the village in the future." This was plausible after all. Grandma had been an outsider who married into the village's prophets. Had always been women who married in, sometimes one, sometimes two or more. My mother looked disappointed. "It would have been better if you were the prophet," she said. "We could have earned more money for the family. And saved up for your brother's marriage." I smiled at her. "If I study hard and get scholarships, I can earn a lot of money in the future and help my brother too. Besides, all prophets are outsider brides. I'm a local girl. How could I be a prophet?" My mother believed me. She told the rest of the village that Grandma hadn't revealed who the next prophet would be. The village chief was the first to doubt this. He came to our house and asked in detail about every move Grandma had made before her death. When he learned that Grandma had met with me a few days earlier, he began questioning me. I insisted, "Grandma didn't say anything. She just asked me to bring her some water." The village chief said, "Prophets can't leave their homes. They'll be attacked by all the village dogs. Dare you go outside?" Of course I dared. I already knew this was just an excuse they'd used in my past life to trap me at home this time. They were just trying to trick me into admitting the truth. I walked out of the house and greeted the neighbor's dog calmly. As always, it wagged its tail at me. The village chief shook his head and said to my mother, "It seems Grandma didn't name her as the next prophet." That's right, prophets could appoint their successors, passing their powers to someone else, but they would die within a week, so no prophet would ever reveal this secret, and no one would voluntarily pass on the ability to see the future. A few days later, my brother came back from outside, bringing with him a beautiful woman, Evelyn. Just like in my past life, I saw her future. She was deeply sinful. She would kill my brother, my mother, and even the entire village. In my past life, I told my mother what I'd seen. But everyone accused me of lying, using my status as a prophet out of fear that Evelyn would become the next prophet, because prophets always came from outsider brides. If a local woman became a prophet, she would lose her ability to see the future once her family married and a new daughter-in-law. No matter how hard I tried to explain in my past life, no one believed me. What's more, Evelyn soon showed many signs of being a prophet. All the village dogs would snarl at her, the rooster stopped crowing, the hen stopped clucking, and even the village bull, your fierce goose, would flee at the sight of her. The villagers said, "These animals fear her power. She will become the most powerful prophet the village has ever seen." But I knew the truth. Those animals loathed her, wanting nothing more than to kill her, but they were helpless against her. When Evelyn first arrived in the village, she said she was just a tourist, wanting to experience the rural scenery and local customs. Just like in my past life, she asked about the prophet as soon as she arrived. When she learned I was the village's prophet in my past life, she immediately offered to marry my brother. Rumors spread that once she and my brother were together, my ability to predict the future would disappear later. She used tricks to alter my prophecies, making everyone believe I had lost my power. There were many things whose endings I had clearly seen, but she always found a way to change them. In the end, I had no choice but to admit that my ability was fading away. Everyone believed Evelyn was the next prophet and that her power was greater than mine. This life, when she learned that Grandma had been the previous prophet and had passed away, she took the initiative to offer to marry my brother just like before. She asked for no betrothal gifts, no formal matchmakers, and no wedding ceremony. She moved directly into our house, saying she would hold the banquet only after she got pregnant. This was like a pie falling from the sky. Naturally, my mother and brother were overjoyed. In my past life, I had tried everything to stop her from entering our home, because I knew she had evil intentions, but not even my own family had believed me, let alone the villagers. So she had entered our home smoothly and become the prophet this life. I not only didn't try to stop her, but also welcomed her warmly because I had already foreseen, as long as I didn't go against her, she wouldn't hurt me. As for my mother and brother, I could only wish them luck. Just like in my past life, Evelyn was very demanding, clinging to my brother every day, but her belly remained empty after a while. My brother didn't mind, but my mother started to complain. She began making sarcastic remarks every day, calling Evelyn a hen that can't lay eggs. Starting the next day, Evelyn killed one hen every day to make soup. She would show my mother the full clutch of eggs inside the hen's belly and say, "It's not that the hen can't lay eggs, it's that you have no blessings or patience." By the time all the hens in our house were eaten, my mother never dared to call her a barren hen again. Evelyn said, "You are what you eat. If you want me to have a baby, you should feed me pregnant animals. That way, I'll get pregnant soon." I was terrified. She was even more brutal than in my past life. Back then, she had only asked to eat pregnant animals after she got pregnant. This life, provoked by my mother, she had already eaten all the hens and now she wanted to eat other pregnant animals. When she ate fish, she insisted on eating those full of roe, especially loving the roe itself. I secretly worried she would end up pregnant with a whole litter of children. But in this life, I had seen her future. She would only have one child, and that child would be the one to kill her. She loved eating river snails. She could tell the difference between male and female snails. She only ate the female ones, giving the male ones to the villagers. Everyone thought this was a sign of her prophetic power, and revered her deeply. The villagers also knew her rules. Whenever they came to ask for predictions, they had to bring fierce, live animals, especially pregnant ones. As a result, our house was constantly filled with pregnant rabbits, egg-laying chickens, ducks, and geese. Sometimes, my mother would feel distressed, saying, "These rabbits are about to have babies, or these chickens, ducks, and geese are still laying eggs. We should raise them a little longer." Whichever animal my mother dared to feel sorry for, Evelyn would eat that one first. She had my mother's thoughts completely figured out. Gradually, just like in my past life, my mother became Evelyn's most devoted and loyal follower. One day, Evelyn asked me, "Why haven't I seen your father? Where is he?" I shook my head. "I don't mean that." I asked her, "Are you a prophet? Why can't you see where my father went?" She said, "I can only see things that will happen in the future, not things that have already happened." I knew she wasn't a true prophet, but a strange feeling welled up in my heart. It seemed that since Grandma's passing, not only could I clearly see the future, but after meeting Evelyn, I could also see some things from the past, something that hadn't happened in my previous life. But I must never tell anyone, especially my mother, because I had already seen my mother's past. She wasn't my biological mother. And my brother wasn't my biological brother. When my brother was 5 years old, Grandma had seen a terrible future. She said my brother would one day cause the destruction of the entire village because of a woman. My father had said, "I am willing to bear the sins my son will commit in the future." So Grandma told my father to take some wine, burn down the fox den 20 miles away, and then leave and never come back. But the next morning, my father missed my mother and brother so much that he ran back. So Grandma came up with another way to resolve the crisis. Go down the mountain and bring back a girl with great blessings and a strong destiny to stabilize the village. Following Grandma's guidance, my father went outside the mountains and brought me back. My mother had once said, "If she's so blessed and has such a strong destiny, why raise her as a daughter? Wouldn't it be better to raise her as a daughter-in-law for our son?" Grandma said that taking me in had already incurred a heavy karmic debt. If they forced me to marry or abused me, the entire village would be wiped out. At first, my mother didn't believe her. She threw me into the mountains that night, the pack of foxes broke into our house and mauled my father to death, leaving not a single bone behind. The next day, Grandma said, "If you don't bring her back, those foxes, who know we burned their den to avert the village's destruction, will return and kill everyone." Terrified, my mother followed Grandma's orders and fetched me from the mountains. From then on, she raised me as her own daughter. No one dared to gossip in front of me, for my fate was tied to the survival of the entire village. To make amends, Grandma passed her gift of foresight to me, hoping I wouldn't resent my family. But as soon as Grandma died, my mother learned that I was the prophet driven by greed. She locked me in the house later. After Evelyn got pregnant, my mother listened to her and cut out my tongue and broke my legs, so when the disaster that destroyed the village struck, I could only watch helplessly as the villagers poisoned themselves, went mad, and died in the end. I set fire to the house, burning myself alive along with Evelyn and her evil spawn, recalling me agony of having my tongue cut out, my legs broken, and being burned alive in my past life. I couldn't help but shudder. Evelyn grabbed my chin, her long nails digging into my flesh. She asked casually, "You really don't know where your father went?" I saw through her past and future. She was a fox, come to avenge the deaths of her parents. Killing my father over a decade ago hadn't quenched her hatred. To save myself and ensure Evelyn suffered a terrible end, I lied. "My father died when I was little." "If you want to know how he died," I added, "you must first get pregnant. Once you're pregnant, the village will hold a grand wedding feast on your wedding night. My brother will tell you all the village's secrets. Here, only women who have had a wedding feast are entitled to know our secrets." Evelyn's eyes narrowed as she pondered my words. Months later, Evelyn announced she was pregnant, her belly slightly swollen. My mother and brother were overjoyed and immediately started picking an auspicious date soon. They settled on the exact same day as in my past life, but this time, I wasn't trapped indoors every day. I walked dozens of miles to school and back on weekends. I herded cattle at home. One day, I noticed our family's cow was pregnant. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Take your calf and run, or she'll eat you." Cows are highly spiritual animals. I knew she could understand me and who she was in my past life. Evelyn had slaughtered 2 pregnant cows, several pregnant sows, and used for her wedding feast, driving all the village's spiritual animals to madness. At Evelyn's son's 100-day banquet, the pregnant animals had poisoned themselves in advance. Cattle and sheep trampled everything, cats and dogs went on a rampage, and the villagers either poisoned themselves or went insane. I had survived only because I'd never been allowed to leave the house. Evelyn, knowing I wasn't a villager, had spared my life but killed my mother and brother, yet she convinced them to maim me, robbing me of my ability to speak and walk. I hated her more than anything. So I'd poured wine in her room, knocked her and her spawn unconscious, and set the house on fire in the roaring flames. I'd watched as the fire spread, consuming the entire village. Then I'd been reborn on the day Grandma passed her foresight to me. "Mo." The cow in front of me suddenly let out a long, mournful low. She knelt before me on her front legs, tears streaming from her eyes. To my shock, I understood her. She wanted me to protect her calf. I saw her future. She didn't have much time left. If Evelyn ate her, her calf would be reborn inside Evelyn's womb, so she was willing to die. To give her child a chance at survival, she begged me to tell Evelyn she was pregnant, hoping Evelyn would move up the wedding date that way. Before the cow and calf died together, Evelyn could eat the unborn calf that day. I returned home with a heavy heart. I'd already seen the future. There was no way to save the cow. The only hope for the calf was to let Evelyn eat it. I secretly told Evelyn our cow was pregnant. But cows are so large, I knew my mother would never agree to slaughter her. Sure enough, the next day, Evelyn threw a fit, demanding to eat the cow. My mother protested. "She's such a big cow. It would be a waste to kill her." Evelyn clutched her belly. "My son in here is craving veal. Doesn't Mom want her future grandson to be as strong as a calf?" Reluctantly, my mother agreed. She moved up my brother's wedding date so they could slaughter the cow with the date changed. The villagers didn't have time to check which pigs, cows, and sheep were pregnant. They just picked a few at random and started preparing for the feast. Evelyn, who didn't eat much, insisted the cow's unborn calf be saved for her. She wanted to prepare it herself. She didn't demand anything else. On the night the cow was killed, my mother brought the cow's internal organs home and cleaned them in the yard, fighting back nausea. I helped her wash them when I saw the large, wriggling calf fetus in the amniotic fluid. I couldn't help but vomit. Evelyn said she'd handle it herself. She rinsed the fetus superficially and carefully placed it in a pot, claiming the amniotic fluid was rich in nutrients. She added the cow's heart to the pot too. The rest, she told my mother to clean and share with the village. Just like in my past life, I didn't eat a single bite of beef. I'd raised that cow myself. I couldn't bear to eat her. After the wedding, Evelyn's hostility toward me faded. Just as it had before. She must have realized I wasn't her biological daughter. She started speaking up for me in front of my mother and brother. She's so old now. Walking dozens of miles to school every day, it's dangerous. She said, why not let her board at school? She could come home once every month or two. It's safer, and it would help her studies. I knew she just found me an annoyance. My brother immediately suggested, she's 16, why bother with school? We should find her a husband. Like the village tradition. Evelyn objected. Forcing her to marry might bring bad luck. What if it angers the spirits? My mother, probably remembering what had happened to my father, quickly agreed we couldn't force me to marry. I knelt at their feet. I'll board at school when I earn money in the future. I'll send it back to support my nephew. But my mother and brother were reluctant to spend money on my education. I lied. Village children get subsidies, no need to pay. Finally, my mother agreed before leaving. I'd already seen her future. Like my brother, she'd be completely enslaved by Evelyn. Her will too weak to resist. As for Evelyn, she'd never harm anyone again. Thanks to the child in her belly. Once I had their permission, I left the village that night. When I reached Fox Mountain, 20 miles outside the village, I couldn't resist. I set fire to the fox den. Foxes are Prophet's greatest natural enemies. So every time we passed the mountain, followers would pour wine into the den and set it ablaze. Even though there had been no foxes there for years, it was the first time I'd done it myself. In the glowing firelight, I thought I heard foxes wailing. I imagined Evelyn's face grim, bitter, and filled with sorrow. Frightened, I ran on until I reached the highway. Seeing the houses and scattered pedestrians on either side, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. A large boulder by the road caught my eye. It was a natural rock, big enough for several people to sit on. Every time I passed it, I felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if I'd known it for years. Even though it was just a stone ordinarily, there were always people taking photos on it. But it was early, and no one was around. Exhausted and hungry after running all night, I lay down on it and fell into a deep sleep. I had a strange dream. A careless couple had stopped to take photos, placing their baby daughter on the rock. When they left, they'd forgotten her. When they finally remembered and rushed back, the baby was gone from the rock. No one knew where she disappeared to. Wake up. Eamon shook me gently. I opened my eyes, dazed, unable to make out his face clearly. A cold, large hand pressed against my forehead, cool and soothing. This child has a fever. She must have caught cold sleeping on the rock all night. Let's get her to the hospital right away. A deep male voice echoed in my ears. In my foggy state, I was lifted up and carried to the hospital. When I woke up again, it was night. Eamon held my hand, his voice warm and excited. My daughter. Fear surged through me. For the first time, this man was shrouded in the unknown. I couldn't see his future. He was the first person I'd ever met like this. I pulled my hand away, curled up on the bed, and whispered, "Don't touch me." I was terrified of strangers' touches. It involuntarily see their futures. But this man's touch scared me even more. Not being able to see his future left me completely helpless. He sighed helplessly. "I'm your long-lost father. Your name is Lydia." My head suddenly felt like it was splitting open. The name Lydia was etched into my mind. While Haryasi, the name I'd had in the village, hardly felt like a real name at all. A doctor beside us held out a piece of paper. "The test results are in. You're Lydia, this man's daughter who's been missing for years." I saw the doctor's future. He was a skilled and virtuous physician who would one day become a renowned medical expert and take over this hospital. So he wasn't lying. Does that mean this man, Logan, is my biological father? Prophets can't see the futures of themselves, their blood relatives, or powerful demons, so he's either my real father or a terrifying demon. I followed Logan to a villa and met the rest of the family, a woman named Alara, who claimed to be my biological mother, Mason, my younger brother, and Lenora, my younger sister. I couldn't see anything about Logan or Alara's past or future, but I could clearly see Mason's and Lenara's. Mason was indeed Elara's biological son, while Lenara was a girl they'd found sleeping on that big rock in the future. Mason and Lenara would become a happy couple. It turned out that Elara would go to the rock from time to time and take in any girls who'd sluck their holding on to the hope that one day she'd find her own missing daughter, even though Logan and Elara showed me the DNA test results proving I was their daughter. I couldn't bring myself to feel close to them. In fact, I thought my adoptive mother in the village had treated me better. How could a biological mother be worse than an adoptive one? Especially since my adoptive mother hadn't treated me all that well. But that was my gut feeling on my first night at the villa. Elara said, "We finally found our daughter. I want to sleep with you tonight." Despite my objections, she climbed into my bed. As soon as we lay down, she asked, "After living in that village for so many years, did you inherit the ability to see the future? Become a prophet?" How did she know about prophets? Remembering Grandma's words before she died, a strange feeling crept over me. Could it be that no matter who my mother was, biological or adoptive, I couldn't tell her about my ability? Grandma passed away. The new prophet is my brother's wife, and she's pregnant. Elara sat up abruptly, grinding her teeth in anger. That damned old woman. I helped her fix her mess, and we agreed she'd pass the ability to you. She tricked me. I'll go burn down her entire village. I couldn't see Elara's past or future, but I could guess. She'd made some kind of deal with Grandma. She'd deliberately left me on that rock, arranging for someone to take me to the village. No wonder I couldn't feel close to them. They'd abandoned me on purpose. They'd known where I was all along but never came looking, all for the sake of that prophetic power. Elara left my room without another word, going to find Logan instead of sleeping with me. The room was well soundproofed, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. I guess they were discussing what to do with me. Maybe they'd send me away tomorrow. The next day, Logan said, "We'll send you to a boarding school in the city." It seemed he still cared about our blood connection. Even if he didn't like me, he was willing to give me a basic education. Elara added, "No matter what, your adoptive mother raised you. We'll pay for your tuition and living expenses. You should go back to visit her when you have time." Of course I'd go back. I needed to see Evelyn's end. Elara suggested, "Based on your age, you should be in 10th grade, but the education in the village was probably limited. Why not spend a year in 9th grade first, then move up to 10th? I insisted on starting 10th grade and was confident I could pass the entrance exam. After all, I could see the answers just by looking at the questions and the people around me. What did I have to fear? There was still some time before school started, so Elara enrolled me in a boarding cram school, one where I didn't have to go home every day. It was clear they didn't want to see me. But I couldn't understand. They were already so rich. Why did they still want that prophetic ability? Sure enough, after seeing the answers and the high school admission score in advance, I barely passed the entrance exam. Elara handled my enrollment ID card and bank account for me during the first monthly exam holiday. Elara took Lenara and me back to the village. She brought a pile of gifts, saying she wanted to thank my adoptive mother for raising me. Evelyn looked stunned when she saw Elara. I hadn't seen Elara appear in either Evelyn's past or future, but when she saw Lenara, fear flashed in her eyes. I saw Evelyn and Lenara's past. They were mother and daughter, both foxes. Lenara was the baby Evelyn had left on that rock to survive. She'd had no choice but to abandon her child there. Evelyn had come to the village to avenge her family, gain the prophet's power, and find Lenara. My head spun with confusion. What on earth was going on? Elara didn't say anything to Evelyn, but her eyes turned strange and solemn when she looked at Evelyn's belly. I didn't know if she'd figured something out, but in the end, she said nothing. That night after dinner, she asked Evelyn about her due date and said, "I'll come back when you have the baby." She didn't stay overnight in the village. Instead, she took Lenara and me and left. Evelyn wanted to say something to Lenara, but she seemed terrified of Elara and stayed silent. After we got back, I noticed Lenara's future had changed. It had been bright before. She was supposed to marry Mason now. Her future was blurred, and even Mason's future was unclear. I didn't know if my prophetic ability was fading or being interfered with, but I acted as if nothing was wrong, pretending I hadn't seen anything. When I returned to school, I found that everyone else's futures were unchanged. I realized my ability was still there. Evelyn's due date drew near on the eve of it. Alara took a day off for Lenora and me and drove us back to the village. Evelyn's belly was enormous, as if she was carrying triplets. Alara said, "Evelyn won't be able to give birth normally. Why not pass your prophetic ability to either Lydia or Lenora?" A sense of foreboding washed over me. Evelyn's gaze turned to me, and in her eyes I saw two possible futures. In one future, she would say she was passing the ability to me. Then the entire village would die. There was no need for it to exist anymore. In the other future, she would name Lenora as the heir. She herself would die, and Lenora would marry Mason, but the villagers would still die. They were unnecessary. However, after Lenora was found to have no prophetic ability, the villagers would be reborn, and the search for a new prophet would begin. I finally understood how I'd been reborn. It was Alara's doing. Evelyn opened her mouth to announce who would inherit her power, but a violent kick from inside her belly cut her off. She let out a shrill scream. The pain prevented her from speaking. Her belly swelled larger and larger, becoming translucent. Alara told my adoptive mother, "I know how to deliver babies. Close the door." She told Evelyn, "Pass on the ability first, and I'll save you." But the fetus inside seemed to sense danger and thrashed violently. Finally, a tiny finger poked through Evelyn's belly. In that split second, I saw his past and future. He was a demon, a cow demon, and I Chiman. He detransferred from the pregnant cow's womb to the fox demons. Once born, he would be infinitely powerful, and then, everything went dark. A tiny palm, then an arm, protruded from Evelyn's belly. Alara sensed danger and moved to stop it, but it was too late. Some unexplainable courage surged within me. I grasped that small hand and pulled gently, lifting him out. He cried, throwing himself into my arms. I froze in shock. Why would he mistake me for his mother? Evelyn let out a blood-curdled scream as she transformed into a fox, collapsing onto the floor with her belly torn open and blood soaking the ground. My adoptive mother, alerted by the commotion, pushed the door open. What she saw was me being hugged by a boy who looked 2 or 3 years old. Evelyn vanished, and only a dead fox lying on the ground. Petrified, she shrieked, "The foxes are here for revenge," and fled outside. My brother walked in from the yard, holding a hen and smiling. "Meyer, I traveled miles to buy you a laying hen." At the sight of the fox, he reacted exactly like my adoptive mother, screaming, "The foxes are here for revenge," and darting away. Soon, the villagers gathered at our door, armed with hoes, sickles, and rakes. Alara picked up the dead fox, walked to the courtyard gate, and said calmly to the crowd, "This fox disguised itself as a prophet to deceive you. I've killed it." Not a single person asked about the baby who had been in Evelyn's belly. I stood far back by the door, watching the gate. Evelyn's child cowered behind me, clinging tightly to the hem of my clothes. The villagers breathed a collective sigh of relief. But they didn't thank Alara. Instead, they eyed her warily and demanded to know her identity. When they learned she was my biological mother, they unanimously ordered her to leave, saying she wasn't welcome in the village. Alara said nothing more. She glanced at me, her eyes now filled with fear of the child Evelyn had given birth to, and left with Lenora. She didn't ask me to come with her. My adoptive mother and brother went mad. I named Evelyn's son Noah. I took Noah and left the village. I had seen its future. No more prophets would appear here, no more demons. It would simply become an ordinary village. That the huge boulder was gone. I went to Logan and Alara's villa, only to find the entire family had moved away. Fortunately, I knew my real name was Lydia, and I had my own bank card and ID. I went to a lottery shop, bought a ticket, and won 1,000,000 yuan. I bought an apartment, registered Noah and myself as permanent residents, enrolled Noah in kindergarten, and went back to school. I think Logan must be my biological father. The DNA test was real, but whether Alara is a powerful demon or my real mother, I'll never know. I've never been able to see through her, but I do know this: they abandoned me again, and they'll never come looking for me. I'll never find out why they needed me to be a prophet, and I don't care anymore. Having Noah is enough.